Sandwalker recruits mocked Earth's fragile kids, then begged for mercy when a law was broken. From a moment a telescar reach descended through Earth's sweltering atmosphere, a challenge older than any treaty stirred in the dust. Law 1 of the galaxy, etched in the memory of every species, had warned, never harm a child of Earth. Yet, cadets fresh from Sandwalker academies treated it as legend, a bedtime story for diplomats. Cadet Sarnvelayer's laughter echoed in the corridors as he imagined toddlers wielding weapons stronger than their shields. What threat could human children pose to the galaxy's mightiest warriors? In the first 30 seconds, we confront the arrogance of interstellar pride and the mystery behind a law born from forgotten tears. The screen will pulse with the image of a lone child, Eli, kneeling on cracked pavement, chalk in hand, an innocuous spiral, revealing power no weapon could match. 10 seconds in, a quick call to action flashes. Subscribe now for stories that shatter expectations, before diving back into hush as Sarn steps forward, drawn by curiosity and contempt. As the narrative unfolds, viewers will sense an undercurrent of dread. Every line of chalk holds a memory, every erased mark a warning. By the close of this introduction, hearts will pound with anticipation of the moment when fragile proves stronger than force, setting the stage for a story that transcends fear and redefines mercy. No law in the galaxy was older nor more sacred than Law 1. Never harm a child of Earth. Engraved in 1,000 languages across the great walls of the Galactic archives, it stood untouched for centuries. And yet, no one alive remembered the reason. Whispers of catastrophe erased from public records only deepened the myth. Cadet Sarnvelayer, a Sandwalker fresh from the academies of Rakzun, laughed aloud as he read it. "What kind of species writes a law this dramatic?" he mocked, his voice echoing to the corridor while others chuckled. The instructors never answered when asked. They only repeated, "Respect the law. Do not test it." But for Sarn, mystery only meant opportunity. The Sandwalkers had a reputation to uphold. Born on a desert moon under 3 suns, their military achievements were carved into bones of their ancestors. They were fast, resilient, unyielding, and bored. With the last interstellar war over and peace reigning across sectors, many young recruits felt trapped by routine diplomacy missions. Sarn, especially, craved more than ceremonial patrols. When he saw that their next assignment involved escort duty on Earth, near a human school, his smile widened. "So this is the threat we're supposed to fear?" he whispered. "Toddlers with crayons?" The rest of the squad joined the laughter, including their second-in-command, Ven, who added, "Let's bring back finger paintings as trophies." Their ship, the Telescar Reach, shimmered above the clouds of Earth as it descended toward Sector 3, a neutral zone clear for intergalactic observers. The mission brief was simple. Monitor the school perimeter, establish contact only in emergencies, and never initiate interaction. Commander Razir, scarred and silent, watched the cadets prepare. He'd seen the law invoke once and barely survived. Still, he had his doubts. Over time, even fear fades into fiction. As he faced the squad, he repeated what had been said to him decades ago. Observe. Don't engage. And above all, do not test them. His voice carried the weight of experience. But Sarn only heard caution as weakness. The landing sequence began. Sarn leaned back in his chair, arms folded, watching Earth's atmosphere turn orange against the viewport. "Looks soft," he muttered, like the planet forgot how to fight. In contrast to his bravado, his vitals showed a slight increase in heart rate, excitement disguised as scorn. The others noticed too, and Ven grinned. "Still nervous about bedtime stories?" Sarn shot him a look, then turned to the window again. As the ship touched down, the silence was unnatural. No birds, no wind, just stillness. Eli was already waiting, feet dangling over a cracked sidewalk, drawing with red chalk. Unseen by the recruits, a local Earth officer watched the landing from a rooftop, eyes narrowed. His duty was simple: never interfere, but always record. His log read, "New batch. 1 is too confident. 1 is too quiet. The rest pretend not to care. Standard pattern." He closed his journal and stepped back into the shadows. From the ground, Eli looked up briefly, though no one stood before him. His drawing paused for a moment, then resumed, slowly forming a triangle intersected by a circle, a pattern older than any known writing system. Its meaning? Forgotten by most, but not by Eli. Inside the ship, the atmosphere grew lighter. The recruits joked, unpacked their gear, and scanned perimeter. There was a strange absence of noise. No laughter from the schoolyard. No running children. "Are we early?" one cadet asked. "Or are they hiding?" Sarn responded, "Maybe they're afraid of us." But there was something odd in his tone, less mocking now, more curious. Commander Wraith monitored from the bridge, eyes fixed on Eli's figure on the ground. "He's here," he muttered. His aide asked, "Who, sir?" Wraith didn't answer. He simply activated the containment protocols around the ship. Sarn volunteered for first patrol. Walking past the school gates, he spotted the lone child, chalk in hand. "We've got one," he said through comms. "Tiny, sitting alone. Should I approach?" The channel crackled. "Negative," Wraith replied. "Maintain distance. Observe only." But Sarn was already halfway across the field. The closer he got, the colder the air felt. The temperature hadn't dropped, but something else had. The weight of silence. Eli didn't look up. He just kept drawing. The lines were precise, like blueprints. "What's he making?" Sarn whispered. "A portal? A trap?" Behind him, the other recruits watched, hesitant. Back on the ship, Wraith unlocked a private file. It displayed a recording labeled Omega Eyes Only. The footage flickered with age. It showed a similar child, seated alone amid fire and steel. Surrounding him, the ruins of an outpost, bodies frozen in motion. No signs of trauma. No weapons. Just cessation. As the child looked up at the camera, static overtook the image. Wraith closed the file and stared at the blinking signal from Sarn's helmet feed. "He's going to touch the line," he whispered. Why do they always touch the line? As if fate pulled each one. Outside, Sarn's boot hovered just inches above the red chalk. Something in him paused. The laughter, the bravado, the hunger for glory, all evaporated in that moment. Eli, still without lifting his head, spoke. That would be unwise. The words weren't loud, but they echoed inside Sarn's skull like a thunderclap. He stumbled back, breath caught. "Did you hear that?" he asked over comms. No one answered, because none of them had. The words were meant only for him. And Eli finally looked up. His eyes were not angry, not sad, just disappointed. Sarn couldn't stop replaying that moment. A child had spoken to him, not with volume, but with certainty. He hadn't seen the lips move, yet the voice had landed like a command within his bones. As he returned to the ship, his swagger was gone. The other recruits teased him, unaware of what had happened. Scared of a 7-year-old? Ven chuckled, tossing him a protein bar. Sarn didn't respond. His mind was fixated on the chalk lines, the triangle and the circle. Why did it feel deliberate? Like a message waiting to be misread? When Wraith passed by, Sarn almost asked him directly, but something told him not to. The commander already knew. The next morning, the squad resumed patrol. This time, 2 cadets, Ven and Lyra, joined Sarn. From a distance, they watched Eli return to the same sidewalk. He carried the same red chalk, now smaller from use. No other children were around. Just one human child, drawing alone, repeating the same symbol. "Weird kid," Lyra muttered. "Does he ever blink?" Ven raised a scanner. No life signs beyond standard human parameters. No weapons. No shields. Just human. Sarn added quietly, "Then why does he terrify me?" No one answered, but the tension in the air was thicker than the windless heat. Suddenly, a new line appeared in Eli's drawing. This time, it extended beyond the previous edges, curling like a spiral into the dust. Sarn's heart skipped. "He's changing it," he whispered. "Why?" Ven shrugged. "Maybe it's just doodling." But the moment he said that, the spiral pulsed. Not physically, but emotionally. Each recruit felt it differently. Guilt, grief, fear. Like a private pain was being gently awakened inside them. Lyra dropped her scanner. What is this?" she gasped. Ven clutched his chest. Sarn stared at Eli, eyes wide. This isn't a drawing. It's a mirror. Breaking protocol. Ven stepped closer. I'm not buying this mystic nonsense, he growled. He's just a kid with chalk. Watch. Before anyone could stop him, Ven walked toward Eli and reached out. He didn't hit him. He didn't shout. He just tapped Eli's shoulder. A soft touch. But the world around them responded like it had been stabbed. The skies dimmed. The air became thick. Every piece of tech on the squad's belt shut off at once. Lyra screamed. My systems just died. From the ship, alarms blared. Inside the cockpit, Wraith bolted upright. They touched him. The squad's visors overloaded, flashing red. A low vibration surged to the ground, subsonic, yet deeply felt. Eli stood, slowly, still facing away. The chalk fell from his hand, landing perfectly on the line. With unnatural precision, the symbol beneath him glowed, not with light, but with awareness. It was now looking back. Ven stumbled backward, eyes watering. What the hell did I just feel? It wasn't pain, it was memory. Sarn's voice shook. I think it was mine. The spiral had shown him something. A childhood moment he had forgotten, his father's death. Not a memory he wanted, one he buried. The ship's sensors came back online only partially. Distorted readings, like the environment had briefly shifted dimensions. Inside the control room, Wraith accessed emergency protocols. Telescar reached to Galactic relay. Code black. Initiate passive observation override. No response. All relays were frozen. The ship was now isolated. The only thing transmitting was a symbol pulsing faintly on all internal monitors. Not a threat, not a code, just presence. Wraith whispered. They triggered the mirror. His aide asked, trembling, What's the mirror? The commander didn't respond. His eyes remained locked on Eli's tiny figure on the hill. Meanwhile, Eli turned around. For the first time, he faced the recruits. His face wasn't angry, nor emotionless. It radiated peace, terrifying peace, the kind that feels unnatural in moments of chaos. Ven dropped to his knees. I need to leave, he said, voice cracking. Lyra tried to call for extraction, no signal. Sarn didn't move. He met Eli's gaze and felt a pressure behind his eyes, like a dam cracking. Words came unbidden into his mind. This is your chance to understand. Will you? Sarn couldn't tell if it was invitation or warning. Maybe both. Then everything stopped. The sky returned to normal. The wind picked up again. The hum of electronics resumed. The recruits looked around, disoriented. Eli was gone. The drawing remained. But now, the spiral had extended into an open path leading away from the sidewalk. The cadets followed it with their eyes. It pointed directly to the school building. He went inside, Lyra said, but no doors had opened. No sounds had been made. Still, the presence lingered, as if reality itself had been marked. Sarn whispered, That wasn't a child. That was a response. From orbit, a long dormant satellite activated, one that had not responded in over 100 years. Its only function was to observe Earth's category Omega anomalies. A single log entry updated. Engagement detected, spiral signature confirmed. Within moments, dozens of council signals came online, all converging toward Earth. But none of them sent warnings. None tried to stop what was happening. They only watched. The law had been broken. But the response was not punishment. It was protocol. Eli wasn't here to react. Eli was the trigger. And the galaxy had just flinched. Commander Wraith knew what he had to do, even if protocol forbade it. He accessed the ship's private archive, entering a code that no one under high command should possess. Omega Access, Archive of Suppressed Events. His fingers hesitated above the final key, but then he pressed it. The screen flickered, revealing a time-stamped record from 273 cycles ago. The file was corrupted, yet the audio was intact. Screams. Static. Then a child's voice. Calm. Curious. Why did you hurt us? Wraith braced himself. This was no ordinary history. This was the event the law had been built to forget, and now it was returning. In the mess hall, the cadets sat in stunned silence. Ven rubbed his temples. Lyra clutched her knees. Sarn remained distant, staring at the chalk drawing through the viewport. The spiral no longer looked like art. It resembled a warning. Or worse, an invitation. "I touched him," Ven muttered, "and I saw my brother die." Lyra responded, her voice hoarse. "I felt every minute I spent abandoned at the academy. I'd buried it, and he gave it back." Sarn whispered, "He didn't give it. He shared it." None of them noticed the ship's lights dim subtly as the archive began broadcasting again. The footage resumed. A child sat alone on a battlefield, his hands covered in ash. Around him lay the ruins of an outpost, council, mercenary, and rogue fleets all turned to glass. No visible wounds. Just silence. The camera zoomed in. Tried to analyze the source of destruction. Then the child looked up. Static hit again, this time more violently. Wraith paused the feed and whispered. He saw the drone. His aide leaned in. "That's impossible." There were no life signs detected in that wreckage. No plasma discharges. No psi fields. What killed them? Wraith replied with dread. Memory. The Omega file described it as a cognitive cascade event. When triggered, a human child under duress didn't retaliate with violence. They reflected, amplifying and projecting the emotional trauma inflicted upon them back at those responsible, but not directly, not like a weapon, more like a mirror placed in the soul. The result? Neurological collapse, total cognitive disintegration. The victims were left frozen in a loop of their darkest moments, forever. The body stays intact. The file read, but the mind never returns. Wraith muttered, and we mocked her fragility. Meanwhile, the council communications grid flickered to life above the ship. 12 golden rings, each representing a species, appeared in perfect sync. But no message came through. No intervention. Only observation. Wraith stared at the projection. "They're not going to stop this." His aide, frightened, asked, "Why?" Wraith clenched his jaw. "Because they need to know if it still works." Deep within the council's archives, some feared the protocol had gone dormant, that humans had forgotten. Now, after centuries of peace, Eli's spiral had reactivated the system, not as an act of war, as a response to violation. Back on the ground, the chalk drawing began to evolve. Even untouched, new lines formed. The spiral extended outward, branching like a neural map. Each line now pulsed faintly. The symbols resembled both art and code, ancient yet algorithmic. Sarn watched, heart pounding. "It's thinking," he whispered. "No," Lyra replied, voice cracking. "It's remembering." A pulse of heat washed over them. Not harmful, but emotional. Their minds flashed with foreign memories. Images of loss, betrayal, and love. All human, none their own. Ven collapsed, tears running down his face. "This is too much." Wraith finally called for emergency evacuation protocols. The ship's systems hesitated, as if receiving two conflicting commands. Evacuate or observe. The override failed. The ship locked itself down. Sarn radioed in. "Commander, something's rewriting the exit permissions." Wraith replied, "It's the Omega mirror. You triggered a reactive field. You're inside it now." Sarn's voice broke. "What does it want from us?" Wraith paused. "Not what. Who?" The silence that followed was heavy. Outside, the drawing expanded again, now reaching the very threshold of the school building. Then the impossible happened. A second figure appeared on the sidewalk. Another child, identical to Eli, but this one faced the recruits. His hands were empty. No chalk, no expression, only stillness. As the two Ellis locked eyes, the spiral froze. Ven gasped. "There's more than one?" But Lyra's scanner read 0 life signs from the second figure. "It's not real," she whispered. "It's memory made flesh." The two Ellis spoke a single word in unison. "Remember." The drawing faded. The ground went still. And in the sky, the council rings closed, signaling silent confirmation. The test had been successful. The next morning, the Earth sky looked normal again. The clouds passed. The temperature was mild and birdsong returned, yet the recruits sensed it was a lie. Something had been awakened that wouldn't sleep again. Sarn stood at the edge of the landing site, staring at the sidewalk where the spiral once glowed. It was gone now, scrubbed clean. No trace of chalk, no footsteps, nothing. He erased it, Lyra whispered, or it erased itself. Ven remained seated near the ship, silent, disconnected. He hadn't spoken since seeing the second Eli. His mind drifted between memory and shock, as if caught in a loop with no exit. Wraith stood inside the command deck, trying to override the ship's internal lockout, but the controls ignored him. "It's not under our jurisdiction anymore," he muttered. His aide looked concerned. "You mean the council?" Wraith shook his head. "No, I mean the child." His voice cracked with a mix of awe and fear. From orbit, the 12 council rings hovered silently, observing, unmoving. The ship's logs were being rewritten in real time by an unknown source. Code began appearing in an ancient dialect once spoken only by the earliest human tribes, before language was even recorded. Wraith whispered, "He's broadcasting through time." Suddenly, Sarn's helmet activated without command. A voice, identical to Eli's, spoke clearly in his mind. "There are pieces of me everywhere. You only found one." Sarn fell to his knees, gasping. "He's inside my head," he shouted, but Lyra scanned his vitals. Everything appeared normal. No intrusions. No signs of psychic contact. Yet Sarn's pupils were dilated. His heartbeat doubled. "I saw him," he said, trembling. "Not just now. I saw him when I was 5. In a dream, he was standing in my room." The others looked at him, horrified, because, slowly, they all began to remember the same dream. At that moment, reality shifted. Time slowed, not metaphorically, but physically. Leaves hung motionless in the air. Dust hovered in mid-flight. The sound of wind halted. And in the middle of it all stood Eli, again. But this Eli was not drawing. He was floating 2 inches above the ground, arms extended, eyes white with light. His voice filled the silence. "I remember you." The phrase landed with unbearable weight. It wasn't a statement. It was a verdict. Wraith's screen blacked out. On it one phrase appeared. Initialization complete. The Omega mirror was now fully active. The ship's gravity system surged, forcing everyone to floor. The council symbols blinked once, then dimmed, as if yielding authority. Eli's form radiated energy that wasn't heat or pressure. It was memory, a psychic emission of everything the recruits had ever buried. Lyra screamed as her vision filled with images of her mother's funeral. Ven cried out in agony, seeing the face of a brother he lost during training. Sarn watched a version of himself, sitting alone in a broken home. But these weren't flashbacks. They were interactive. The past was being relived, in detail, in emotion, in pain. Eli stepped forward, and with each step, a ripple of stillness followed. No weapon rose against him. No order was given to attack. No one moved. They couldn't. Their muscles didn't obey. The air grew heavy with an invisible law, older than any galactic treaty. "You asked why," Eli said calmly. "Why the law exists. Why the council is silent. Why you're afraid." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Because you are not supposed to remember us." The final word echoed across the compound. Us. Not me. This wasn't about Eli. It never had been. He was only one of many. From behind the trees, a second figure emerged. An old woman. Human. Dressed in rags and woven cloth. Carrying a book made of stone. Her eyes glowed with the same white light. No one recognized her, but they all felt they had seen her before. She approached Eli and laid the stone book at his feet. "You've judged," she said. "Now choose." Eli nodded. The ground cracked, revealing a shallow pool of light beneath the surface, filled with fragments of memory, both human and alien. "Let them feel," Eli replied. The woman stepped back, and the pool rose. The recruits screamed as their bodies were enveloped in the light. But it wasn't pain. It was understanding. They felt every war, every loss, every betrayal that had birthed humanity's law. They saw the child who destroyed an empire with grief alone. They felt the moment the council agreed to hide it. They saw the vote, the guilt, the fear. They felt the truth. Humans had not survived because they were strong. They had survived because they turned sorrow into power. And children? Children held that power without knowing it until someone forced them to use it. When the light vanished, the recruits lay silent on the ground. Eli was gone. So was the woman. The stone book had turned to dust. And yet, in each of their hands, something remained, a red mark, a spiral etched into their palms. A reminder, not of punishment, but of potential. Wraith stood slowly, looking around. "What happens now?" he asked aloud. The council's ring shimmered once more, displaying a new symbol, neither threat nor reward, just confirmation. The mirror had spoken, and its memory had chosen to awaken. The recruits didn't speak for hours. They lay across the cold field outside the ship, eyes wide, hearts slowed, minds unraveling and rethreading in silence. The light had changed them more than they could explain. They hadn't just seen humanity's pain. They had lived it. Sarn sat up first. His palm still burned with the spiral's trace. "I remember a name," he whispered. "Not mine. Hers." He looked at Lyra. "Sophie." Lyra blinked. "My sister." She hadn't mentioned her name in years. Then added, "My father, he sang to me." I forgot that part. The spiral wasn't punishment. It was restoration. But with it came guilt. They hadn't just violated a law. They had provoked a sacred memory. Inside the ship, Wraith stared at the screens. They were black. The council's rings had vanished. No signal. No logs. It was as if the encounter had never happened. The only thing left was a new icon on the home screen, a glowing red spiral that slowly faded. His hand hovered over the console. "Do I report this?" he muttered. "To who?" His aide stood behind him, trembling. "Sir, what are they?" Wraith shook his head. "Not gods. Not monsters. Just mirrors. And we don't like what we see." For the first time in decades, he felt unsure, not of his command, but of his right to lead. Later that day, as the recruits gathered inside the briefing hall, something began to stir. Ven's body seized. His mouth opened wide as a scream tore from his lungs, but no sound emerged. His eyes rolled back, and on the wall behind him, words burned into the metal. Reflection rejected. The others rushed to his side, but it was too late. His body remained, breathing shallowly, but his consciousness was gone. Lyra sobbed. He fought it. He didn't let it pass through. Wraith turned away. The mirror doesn't kill. It reveals. And some can't survive that. Sarn clenched his fists. Then we don't let it break us. That night, Sarn stayed awake, staring into his own reflection. His face looked older, somehow wiser, wounded. "What did I do?" he whispered to glass. "What did I become?" The mirror didn't answer, but behind him, the faint sound of chalk scratching stone returned. He turned, but no one was there, only the wall, and a new spiral forming on its own, red and slow. A voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere. "What will you do with what you now know?" It was Eli's voice, still calm, still terrifying, because now the question was his to answer. No orders, no shields, just truth. The next morning, they buried Ven in a neutral zone beneath a stone marked with a spiral. It was the first time a Sandwalker funeral carried human symbols. No one objected. Lyra placed a small recording device beside the grave, a song her brother used to play for her. Sarn knelt down, pressing his palm to the earth. "I won't forget," he said quietly. "That's the point, isn't it?" The wind blew gently, and in the distance, a faint laugh, childlike, echoed once. Some said it was a breeze. Others knew better. The mirror had accepted its offering, but it was far from done. Wraith gathered the squad after the funeral. "There are no orders now," he said. "No mission. We are no longer observers. We are witnesses. And witnesses remember." He pulled out a data crystal and shattered it underfoot. "Forget the report. It doesn't matter. What matters is what we carry now." The recruits nodded in silence. No one dared to speak a word about the council. Whatever the mirror was, it had bypassed politics, weapons, even time itself. It had cut straight into soul. And once you've been open like that, no chain of command can close you again. Later, in the empty field, Sarn walked alone. His boots touched the sidewalk where Eli once sat. He brought a piece of chalk, human-made red, slightly cracked, and began drawing the spiral again. Not because he was commanded, not because he feared, but because he remembered. With each curve, he felt the weight of his own mistakes, and the strange peace of being allowed to feel them. When he finished, he stepped back and whispered, "This time I'm listening." The spiral pulsed once, then faded into dust, not vanishing, integrating, a seed planted in alien hands. That night, each recruit dreamed the same dream. A classroom, children laughing, a teacher at the board drawing shapes, and Eli sitting at the back, smiling, not glowing, not godlike, just human. He turned to them one by one and said, "Do you know the lesson now?" None of them answered in the dream, but they all woke with the same thought. The lesson was never about fear. It was about empathy. And the law, it wasn't protection for the children. It was protection from them until we were ready to learn. As dawn broke over the training grounds, the recruits gathered in a silent circle around the ancient spiral etched into the earth. The law one was not just a rule, it was a covenant. Today, Sarn stood at its center, chalk trembling in his grasp. He closed his eyes and remembered Van's final words. "We don't let it break us." He lifted his arm and drew a single line through the spiral's heart, severing its symmetry. The wind stilled. For a heartbeat, the galaxy held its breath. Then, from the horizon, Eli appeared again, this time wearing a white cloak woven with red threads. Eli's gaze scans each recruit, but it lands longest on Sarn. "You did not destroy it," he said softly. "You liberated it." Sarn swallowed, voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. "Pain is not a weapon. It's a doorway." The cloak around Eli shifted, revealing a book, an ornate codex bound in human skin and alien alloy. The title glowed in 6 languages, Mercy Beyond Law. Eli opened it, and thousands of chalk lines flew from its pages, rewriting the spiral beneath them into a new symbol, an open palm cradling a shattered star. Commander Ray stepped forward, uncertain. "What does this mean?" he asked. The book snapped shut. Eli placed it at Sarn's feet. "No chalk now, no laws, only choice." Eli spoke. "The code was broken to show you mercy. But mercy is not a rule. It is an act." A gust of wind scattered the chalk dust into the air, painting the sky with red filaments. The recruits watched in awe as each filament settled on their shoulders like a blessing. "You will carry this truth," Eli continued, "as long as you live." Sarn kneeled to pick up the codex. Its weight was surprising. Light as hope, heavy as responsibility. He flipped through the pages and saw stories. Humans showing compassion to enemies. Children sharing food with creatures they didn't understand. Entire worlds saved by forgiveness. Each tale was a micro-galactic event, unknown to Sandwalker history. "We ignored these," Sarn said, voice low. "We thought mercy was weakness." Eli nodded. "And you thought law was protection. But the heart is stronger." Lyra, tears in her eyes, stepped beside Sarn. She touched the codex and felt warmth spread through her. "We were taught to fear children," she said, "but they remind us what it means to feel." She whispered to the group, "Mercy is our new law." The recruits collectively exhaled, releasing burdens they hadn't known they carried. In that moment, the axis of power shifted, not from threat, but from trust. From orbit, the council rings reappeared, rotating slowly. Instead of sealing commands, they projected images of the new symbol across every screen in their network. The message was simple: let compassion guide justice. No enforcement, no judgment, just guidance. Below, the Sandwalkers exchanged glances. They understood. Their role had changed from observers to ambassadors of mercy. The galaxy was watching as they would rewrite history. As the codex's cover closed, Sarn addressed his fellow cadets. We have been given a gift, he said. A chance to redefine our place in the cosmos. He turned to Wraith. Will you lead us? The commander's usual stoicism melted into a gentle nod. I will follow you. The recruits formed ranks not for battle, but for a journey, one of empathy, understanding, and hope. The power to harm was replaced by the power to heal. Eli's form began to fade. Before vanishing, he smiled, revealing eyes that were both human and ancient. Remember, he whispered, mercy is a mirror that reflects the best of us. Then he was gone, leaving only the codex and the new spiral in the earth. The recruits felt a resonance in their souls, the conviction that mercy could break any code. That day, the Sandwalker banner was rewritten, no longer emblazoned with blades or shields. It bore the open palm and shattered star, and under it, a single phrase carved into metal, through mercy we emerge. As the recruits boarded the Telescar Reach, they carried more than weapons. They carried a message, a promise to every world they'd meet, mercy before might. As the twin suns dipped below the horizon, the Telescar Reach lifted from Earth's atmosphere, leaving the training grounds bathed in twilight. The recruits, no longer mere cadets, stood at the viewport, their reflections merging with the vast canvas of stars. Each spiral mark on their palms glowed softly, pulsing in unison like distant constellations. They no longer felt isolated. They were linked, bound by a truth that transcended species and treaties. The dust where Eli first drew his spiral had become sacred ground, a nexus of empathy woven into the galaxy's tapestry. It was a reminder that power lay not in conquest, but in connection. Back on the bridge, Commander Wraith activated a silent broadcast. The image of the open palm and shattered star filled every screen across Sandwalker space. Below it, text scrolled, "Through mercy we emerge." No commands followed, no demands. Instead, worlds paused, curious. Fleet commanders exchanged puzzled glances. Bureaucrats halted their debates. Entire civilizations leaned forward, sensing a shift in the cosmic current. And at the heart of it all was Earth's forgotten children, whose strength lay hidden in innocence. In the cadet quarters, Sarn gathered the recruits for one final vigil. He passed the codex around, letting each hold its weight. Under the lowlights, they read stories of mercy that spanned from tiny shelters on volcanic moons to cathedral-sized sanctuaries orbiting gas giants. Each tale echoed their own transformation. He looked at Lyra, whose eyes shone with determination, and at Ven's replacement, a newcomer trembling with questions. "This isn't just our story anymore," Sarn said. "It's the galaxy's challenge, to choose compassion when might demand otherwise." Meanwhile, reports trickled in from distant sectors. A mining colony ceased its forced labor. Workers had simply walked away, leaving executives bewildered but unharmed. A warlord's child saved an enemy prisoner. A plague was cured on a world where healers opened their doors to invaders. No enforcement, no treaties, just ripples of mercy cascading from the initial spark Sarn had drawn. The spiral was everywhere now, in hearts, in laws, and songs. The galaxy learned to remember itself. Inside the captain's ready room, Wraith stared at a holomap. Trade routes shifted as planets reopened borders previously sealed for security. Philosophers debated the mercy doctrine. Artists painted murals of children and aliens sharing chalk. Even the Galactic archives added a new section, Omega Requiem, a permanent record of the event sparked by a child's chalk. The story that had been buried returned, not as a weapon, but as a lesson. And Wraith realized the true way to command, not to lead armies, but to guide souls. On the final day before departure, Sarn returned to the sacred dust. He knelt and traced the spiral with his finger, feeling the grain beneath his skin. Around him, the recruits formed a circle. In silence, they each carved their own symbol beside it, unique variations representing personal growth. Then, with a unified breath, they rose and placed a hand over their hearts. "For every child who teaches the universe its own reflection," Sarn intoned, "we are forever changed." The dust shimmered and settled, sealing their vow. As the Ketsu closed, a new chapter began. The Telescar Reach charted a course for the next world, not as conquerors, but as healers. The recruits, once mockers, now carried chalk, codex, and conviction. Their story will be told in lullabies, in council chambers, and in the silence before battle. Because where once dust masked danger, it now held power. Power to transform, to unite, to remind the galaxy that mercy is the greatest law of all. If you enjoyed this galactic journey, subscribe for more HFY stories that redefine the cosmos.